What's going on, everybody? Episode 10 of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm with Adrian. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good. So, for anyone who doesn't know, give us a rundown of who you are, what you do.
My name is Adrian Conway, and I am the co-founder of F&X, which is a supplement brand that we started in 2017. Prior to that, I've been a lifelong athlete. And probably from about 2011 through 2017, I've been competing in the sport of CrossFit. Took a few years off, and then I went back to the CrossFit Games this year as a master's athlete, so 35 to 39, and was able to finish third. So I'm a business owner, but very much kind of an entrepreneur as a whole, and I still do a lot of fitness myself and a lot of coaching for other aspiring athletes that kind of want to do what I've been able to do over the last several years.
Did you play college football?
I did, yeah. I played college football at Weber State University, which is in Utah. It's in northern Utah. It's in Ogden, and that's where our company is now. We're in Salt Lake City. So that's what brought me here out of high school, was where I went to Phoenix, Arizona, and I was recruited to come play at Weber State and spent 4 years here, and now it's home.
What position did you play?
I played running back.
Oh, you're a running back.
Yeah.
I looking at your Instagram and stuff, I figured you'd be like a linebacker.
No, I mean, similar statures, right? Like, running backs and linebackers are very similar in that way, but no, I'm about 5'11", and I was probably, my playing weight was between 210 and 220 in college. So it suited me really well, and I potentially could have been a backer. I was recruited from NAU to be a backer, but I wanted to carry the football.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
So then from there, did you just fall in love with CrossFit, or what made you get into the whole CrossFit thing?
Yeah. So, I finished my playing career at Weber State. I always wanted to be playing football as long as I could. My dream was to play in the NFL. And so what that looked like for me was to do my pro day. The story behind me was that I kind of had an injury-plagued college career, which meant that, like, even as a freshman, I came in and was able to start and play and get the ball and do some really cool things. But throughout my junior and senior year at Weber State, I had injuries that made me miss a little over half of the season each season. And because of that, when you get ready to do things like a pro day where there's scouts there that want to interview you and talk about your career and all these things, no one wanted to invest hundreds of thousands or potentially $1 million or two into an athlete that might just be sitting on the sideline due to injury. So I didn't have an opportunity to play in the NFL like I dreamed, but I did play 2 years of arena football here in Utah, and I was able to almost work football out of my system, if you will. But throughout those 2 years, and the background on me, so everyone understands, is I did study exercise science and kinesiology while I was in college. So that was always my plan B. It was always my idea to stay around sports and athletics and train athletes to be the highest level performers possible. So while I was doing that, and at the same time playing arena football, I was exposed to what CrossFit is. And I was a bit skeptical at first when I heard about it. I needed to learn more about the methodology. I thought it was just for, small gymnastics based guys that did a bunch of pull-ups and push-ups, right? Like that's what I thought CrossFit was, until I learned how to do it in its full. And as I learned it, I fell in love with it. And more specifically, I fell in love with the competitive side. So in the end of 2010, I got what's called my CrossFit Level 1, which is what basically certifies you to be able to coach and say that you're a CrossFit coach. After I got that, I started doing it on a very regular basis and aspiring to go to the CrossFit Games. I saw there was a man, his name was Graham Holmberg, in 2010, who also played like Division III football, and he won the CrossFit Games that year. So when I saw him win, I was like, okay, I could go do this thing and maybe win it. So I started doing it.
And from there, it just took off?
Yeah, from there it took off. I mean, it wasn't just like 0 to 100, but it was definitely 0 to 80, all in a very short amount of time. I've always been a pretty darn hard worker, meaning that I was always a gym rat when I was in college. I was never a guy that tried to get by on just the gifts genetically that I've been blessed with. But, I was spending the time in the weight room. I was the guy chirping in everyone else's ear to get them to work hard. I was always, I was a team captain. So that kind of naturally fell on my shoulders, but it was a strength of mine going into CrossFit then, because I felt as though any limitation that I had physically, I could gain it through practice and hard work. And, this is better known as like the growth mindset, if you're familiar with having a fixed or growth mindset. I'm fortunate enough to always been wired with this growth mindset. I've always been able to trick myself into believing if something's out there and I want it, I can achieve it in some way. And whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's worked for me so far in my life. And it was that way with CrossFit. So I did have great success early on. In fact, I made it to a regional competition my very first year competing. And my first competition in person was at a regional level competition where I finished 6th. And unfortunately, you had to get top 3 to qualify for the CrossFit Games. So my first year, I didn't make it. And then I was able to meet other people in Salt Lake City to train with that next season. And I actually joined a team, and we made it to the CrossFit Games that year in 2013. 2012 and 2013, where we both years won the CrossFit Games. And this created great momentum for me. It helped me rub shoulders with some of the fittest people in the world, but also see that I was right there on their level. So it gave me a burst of confidence as well. And then the next couple of years, I would pursue going individual. And I made it individually in 2015, where I finished the 21st fittest man in the world, which was pretty awesome. And then the next time I would go back to the games would be 2017 on another team, and we would win the CrossFit Games yet again. So I'm fortunate enough to say that I've won the CrossFit Games 3 times on a team and been there twice as an individual now. Again, this year in 2021, I was there as a master's athlete where I finished 3rd. But from a team perspective, it's pretty cool because if you follow the sport at all, there's a team named CrossFit Mayhem with Rich Froning. He's one of the fittest men in history. He's on the team, and he hasn't lost a CrossFit Games since we were there and beat them in 2017. So they won 2 years before we had a team. Then we had a team and we won, and we haven't been back on a team ever since. And they've been winning ever since. So it's a pretty cool accolade to have, much even more valuable than we recognized at the time. We certainly didn't know they would continue on in their dominance the way they have.
Yeah, the growth mindset that you talk about, I think it's important for any athlete, whether you're in mixed martial arts or you're playing football or you're doing CrossFit, I think, or not even athletically, just business-wise or anything. I think the growth mindset, to be able to believe that you can achieve it, is step 1 to achieving goals that you want.
I completely agree. And I think it even goes further than athletes, right? I want our young employees here to have a growth mindset as well. So that way, when we set their parameters and we set their expectations each month, they're like, okay, no matter what it is, I've got to find a way, and I can find a way that I can achieve this. And I think it's the same thing relationally. You know, I'm a father, I'm a husband, all these things. And it really carries into every aspect of my life. So it's certainly important, man.
Yeah, I mean, that I completely agree. So can you tell me a little bit about FNX, what made you want to create it, and just kind of the journey that it's been through as of late?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I met my business partner, Skylar Farnes, in 2016. And it was literally because he sought me out from who he knew I was as a competitor in the CrossFit space, right? Mm-hmm. So he kind of knew who I was. He knew my identity or the things that I believe in, a bit about my personality. And at the time, I was a full-time coach. I was working on the CrossFit seminar staff as well. So I was getting to teach seminars across the country. I was really doing things that I loved, right? I was in a good spot. And we were just getting ready actually to put our team together to go to the CrossFit Games the next year in 2017. Mm-hmm. And long story short, just a few times after meeting with Skylar and chatting, he basically approached me more from an advice standpoint. He said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business and I'd love your advice. I think you're someone good in the CrossFit space to get some advice from. So I was like, sure, man, I'll help you. And essentially we had a lot of in-depth conversations, from life to dreams to our perceptions of business or added value to consumers, right. What would eventually turn into our FNX ambassador program, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then after just a few conversations and meeting together, he brought up to me the full idea. And the idea was for us to go in on this as business partners and to essentially start a supplement brand. And of course, my background with being exercise science, kinesiology, and exercise physiology, then of course my years from performance and nutrition as an athlete as well. I had my values. I was bringing my values to the table, and then for him, his business background and having the ability to kind of piece together where our needs are versus our wants and what we would need to do in order to, make the bottom line be attractive and what we aspired our business to look like. We made a great team. And so we had this dream. Skylar already had the idea of it being, the Phoenix that we would represent, which of course we want to do to inspire people to rise again and rise from the ashes, to be able to redefine themselves on a regular basis. We wanted to do it in 2 ways, meaning that we wanted our products to, from a physiological standpoint, literally be able to help you, recover and rise again, whether it's for the next session or the next training session, the next day or whatever it might be. But then we also, from a social media standpoint, from a athlete sponsorship standpoint. We wanted all of our relationships and content that we released to be able to inspire you then to do the same thing, to rise, to be inspired, to be something more. And so with that, we hit the ground running in August 2017. We had some really great momentum because that year, again, that was the year we were fortunate enough to win the CrossFit Games. And we launched our brand at the CrossFit Games in 2017. So timing was just right. It was certainly working in our favor. We knocked down the door with just a few staple products, from a cricket protein that was very unique in the market at the time to our whey, which is called Refuel. We had our pre-workout, both recharge and reinforce, and then our BCAAs recover. And of course, throughout the years, what we've learned is that people enjoy variance in their supplementation. They like to have a full line that they can go to and trust. And one of our big visions was to kind of be where we are now, to be honest with you, where I feel as though you as a young aspiring athlete or training for whatever your reasons are, even if it's just to be healthy or maximize your performance, is that we wanted people to be able to come to us and have a place where they viewed as a trusted source, but they could get everything that they needed. Right. One of the biggest hiccups for me as a growing athlete coming up over time was that I could find all the supplements I needed, but I'd have to go to like 2 or 3 different companies to do it. Meaning that I might have like a really cool pre-workout I love from someone, and then a really good protein that I like from another person. And then of course I had to go get my greens from like some other whole food source from like, you know, whatever supplement shop online. And so we wanted to be able to carry and source products that were diverse enough that almost any and every person could feel that their needs were being met with us as one brand. And honestly, throughout the last 4.5 years, we've learned a lot. You know, we of course have an ambassador program that has served us very well, where we get an opportunity to let the everyday man and woman to feel valued from our brand, where that means if they're willing to represent us in their lifestyle, that they can have the opportunity to have a lifetime of discounts. I'm in a relationship with our brand, from having access to Facebook Lives to our ambassador Facebook group. And even then the opportunity to become an elite ambassador down the road, where the relationship is even deeper and more enriched. But yeah, we've learned a lot. We've had steady growth throughout the years. And we're very optimistic that year 5 here into year 2022 is going to be even our best year yet. So we're pumped.
Yeah. So what, like when you create a supplement, what all goes into that?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. It's a lot. So, you know, I would say that first and foremost, what we're always trying to do is think about ways to set ourselves apart, right? So, you know, for us, it's like, okay, do we, you know, with our Refuel, for example, what is a way that we can set ourselves apart with a traditional whey protein? Well, we make ours cold processed. And so that was really important for us because it helps validate and hold on to more of the nutrients when the curds from the cheese are being processed, right? And if you think about it, are you a coffee drinker?
No, I do not drink coffee.
Okay.
The only caffeine I take in is the Recharge Plus, or the.
Well, there you go. Recharge Plus. You're getting your fair share from that. So that's all you need. But for example, I use coffee because it's such a commonly taken, you know, beverage, right? But coffee, when it's brewed hot, you lose a lot of the nutrients, and it makes it more acidic, and it also bitters the taste. Versus if you brew it cold, it takes longer, but the caffeine is a higher percentage and the acidity is a lower percentage. So it keeps the quality of the nutrients a bit higher. It's the same with us when we process our greens and our protein. And so for us, it makes a little bit of a slower churn in regards to, hey, when we're out of product to get restocked, but it makes it worth it in regards to, hey, people can understand that all proteins are not created equally. And this is what sets FNX apart when it comes to the quality versus the quantity. So that's one thing, is that we really think about what it looks like on how to set ourselves apart. The next thing then is that we have to talk to our creators, because we do outsource. Like, I'm not a scientist or a chemist. So we have a chemist that we work with, that he then has to go in and formulate and say, hey, Adrian, what did you say you wanted in this product? And I let him know, I want this, that, and the other. And a lot of it's based off of already studied scientific evidence that is most beneficial, right? So when it came to us making our something more unique, I'd say like our Immune Plus complex, right? Where it's a slew of a combination of ingredients. We wanted to make sure that there were potent amounts in each category, so it was actually going to make a difference for the consumer and not just be things that are listed there, right? Because it's very easy for supplement brands to get caught up in more is better, which it's not, right? There's a particular amount that is studied and delivers. And so we really try to hold true to those. But the reason I have to bring that up to the chemist is because then he can say, well, Adrian, this is what it's going to look like, but we're not going to have much room for flavoring in the BCAAs, if we add the extra, if we add L-leucine, and with 2 more grams of L-leucine. So then I have to decide, okay, is it worth it to have less of a flavor and more of the potent, ingredients? And then we have to have the discussion, is it better for it to be a capsule or a powder? Is it, you know what I'm saying? And so there's a lot of back and forth for us. And then after we make that decision, then there's already several more back and forth with the taste of something. So they usually go back in the lab and they create it. And then of course we either go down to the lab or they come to us and we're having a taste test. And we're like, this one we really like. This one we really don't like. Why is this one more bitter? We feel like it needs to be a little more savory or a little more sweet or whatever it might be. Right. And then once we dial it in and it's there, then it gets cleared to go get checked, because we're good practicing in manufacturing in regards to like everything has to be validated in regards to what ingredients are in it or actually in it. And then after that, man, it hits the line. But it is a process. And I would say from the idea here within my office and then me meeting with Skylar and us kind of formulating the desire behind whether ambassadors are requesting it or whatever to getting on the line, usually it's at least a few months of a process for a new product. So anything that gets launched, like we've been planning it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had a supplement from you guys that tastes bad. Obviously I like other ones more than others, but I do know that like I have the mint chocolate truffle protein powder behind me, and that's some of the best tasting protein I've had. And it's like I've taken many other proteins, but that one, it's not as like chalky as like others, and that's why I keep coming back for it.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I love it. I love mint chocolate truffle. I think it's delicious. Definitely one of my favorites. I'm a little biased towards all of our Restart flavors. I know that you mentioned your caffeine sources from Recharge Plus, but if you ever get into trying our AM protein, mans, those are fire. The orange dreamsicle, the blueberry muffin, amazing.
What do those have, like caffeine in it, or are they just like
they do?
Protein
yeah,
shake?
So they have some green bean is the caffeine source. So it's basically very similar to like a coffee bean, but in its more immature state. So it's processed a little bit different. And then we also have L-theanine and theobromine, which are nootropics. So those kind of like relax you, but give you a place of like mental clarity and focus. So for me, I love to start my day with that stuff because I feel like it's interesting, but I feel like I speak more clearly and type faster and all the things that I do, but I'm also still banging out my 22 to 30 grams of protein, however much I use of it. But yeah, I usually mix it with oats in the morning, or I'm just throwing it in a shake like normal.
Do you drink your shakes with, what do you put your protein powder? Do you use milk, almond milk, water? What do you use personally?
I use water for the most part. So I use water most of the time. Clearly, I actually use most of the products in our line, not all of them, but most of them each day. So a lot of times, for example, like my morning protein shake will be, 8 to 10 ounces of water. I'll put creatine in there. I'll put glutamine in there, 1 heaping scoop of each, which is about 5 grams of each of those. And then I usually do 1 scoop of Restart, which is going to be about 22 to 23 grams of protein, depending on the flavor. But Restart Blueberry Muffin is usually my go-to right now. And then sometimes I add another half scoop or full scoop of Refuel Vanilla. So it's like I get vanilla with the Blueberry Muffin. I love that taste. And then our creatine and glutamine are unflavored. So it's a great way for me to get out the door pretty quick if I need a quick breakfast. And then I just have it with a banana and sometimes an apple in my drive to work. And I'm good to go.
What's your full day of supplementation like throughout the day?
Yeah, great question. So I would say I'll give you my general rundown. I wake up, usually have some water and coffee in the morning. And that's really between like the first 2 hours of me waking. Then I'm hungry and I'm ready for breakfast. So either do a shake like I described to you, or I put my Restart into my oats. So I cook the oats. After the oats are cooked, I add about a half cup of cottage cheese, add the protein on top of the cottage cheese. Then I put my creatine and glutamine right in there, mix it all up. And that's just amazing for me in the morning. So that's my breakfast. So I'm getting my creatine, my glutamine, my protein there. Then I have my krill oil, and I have about 2 to 3 capsules of krill, which is Renew. And then I also have my Immune Plus complex in the morning, 3 capsules. And then usually my men's multivitamin. So it's about, 7 capsules that I down and with my water as I'm walking out of the door to get to work. Then what I commonly do as a pre-workout is I do some Retaliate, which is our HMB product. So I have a scoop of Retaliate, sometimes a half a scoop of Recharge, but never a full scoop just because I already had Restart and a coffee in the morning. Mm-hmm. So usually meet my caffeine quota. And I have that and I sip on that as I warm up for my workout. Then I usually have Reburst, which is our intra-workout carbohydrate. Usually right after my workout. If it's a really long workout, I'll have a scoop and sip on it during my workout. And then post-workout, usually it's 2 scoops of refuel of some kind. Then I have my lunch, which is supplement free, drink some water throughout the day, of course, and then eat my dinner. And then after dinner, I commonly have, before I sauna at night, 2 scoops of BCAAs, which is Recover. So that's 10 grams. I have another scoop of creatine, another scoop of glutamine, because I take about 10 grams of creatine, 10 grams of glutamine in a day, right? And then I have those BCAAs in the evening as well, like I mentioned. And then after that, right before I go to bed, sometimes I'm either taking Relax to help me wind down and go to sleep, or I'm doing a scoop of Retire before I go to bed. So it's pretty thorough. And some days I'm also having my greens and my reds, and it really just depends on what my diet looks like. But right now, because I'm not training at a really high volume, now if I get ready to be able to qualify for the CrossFit Games again, that'll change a little bit, because so much of my diet then has to just be like rice and potatoes and very high rich carbohydrates with my protein, of course, that I don't really want to eat a ton of veggies and fruits. And when I'm not eating a ton of veggies and fruits, then I supplement a lot more with my greens and reds as well.
Yeah. I mean, how often do you tune into your diet? Like, is it like, would you say you maintain a healthy, clean diet consistently, or do you dial it in, or like, what's your diet look like regularly?
Yeah, I do. I eat very clean on a regular basis. It's always important to me. It's important to be an example that way as well. I think there's a lot of people who think that they can out train a bad diet, which won't happen. And there's another group of people that think they can out supplement a bad diet, which won't happen. Supplements are literally meant to supplement, right? So if your lifestyle's not in queue and your diet's not in queue, your lifestyle's not in queue. So I don't really have a lot of limitations or restrictions that I hold on myself, but on a day in and day out basis, I mean, my days start with, some oats and fresh fruit with protein in it. Then my lunch is very heavy on the carbohydrates because I'm usually post-workout. So what I'll do is have at least probably like 2 cups of rice. Today is some pulled pork that was left over from dinner last night. But then I also have, an apple and 2 oranges while I'm at work as well. So again, fresh fruits and vegetables there. Then I have a lot of veggies at dinner every single night, where it's either going to be, a big salad, or it's going to be something, whether, we're steaming or cooking broccoli or some kind of other vegetable, peppers, whatever. And, another good protein source, healthy fats, whether it's avocado or the oils that we're cooking with. And then at night, I usually end up having some kind of snack as well. And usually right now, I would say it's some kind of sandwich, but usually it has even some veggies on that. I'm either putting iceberg lettuce and some, arugula on it, and just my choice of protein. But it's usually pretty well dialed in the absence of, like, right now, I'm not tracking my macros though, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm not weighing and measuring anything, but it's still pretty much, if I could outline my diet, I'd say I eat meats and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, a little bit of starch, more starch around my training periods, and really no sugar. So I avoid added sugar, except, 1 or 2 meals a week where I go hard in the paint on like a Friday or Saturday night and eat a dozen donuts or something fun.
Yeah. I mean, on your Instagram, I saw somebody asked you about like a Super Bowl diet, what to do about the Super Bowl. And, you're just like, eat whatever you want on the Super Bowl and just kick back your diet tomorrow. And, that was like, you don't typically see like a fitness professional say something like that, because they're trying to preach healthy 24/7. But I think it's like important to realize that one bad day of eating a dozen of donuts and just completely eating like crap isn't going to really do much if you're eating clean 6 days out of the week.
That's right, man. And that's what it is. It's, I'm 36, man. I've been in this game for a minute. Not that I'm old by any stretch, but it's like I've learned a lot of lessons. And one of them is that, especially being a coach, if people are all in, it's really awesome. And it's, in fact, it's fantastic for people to be all in, but they can't just be all in all the time. They won't last long.
Right.
And the best benefits are for the people who stay tried and true for the long term. And so it's balance. It's whether it's 80-20, 80% of the meals you eat are spot on, weighed and measured with really healthy food. And then 20%, you have a great time. Or if it's 90-10, I kind of lean more into 90-10. I think you can still see some really, really great results. So for example, I tell people if I eat 4 meals a day, and 6 days a week, I'm 24 out of 24 on those meals. If I have 2 meals a week that I just kind of go off the deep end and I have a full pizza, 1 meal, and then another meal I have, a burrito and followed up with a couple donuts, like it's not going to be the end of me. If it's more of a fast food choice and everything like that. And I'll always make sure that I'm getting back on making right decisions the next day and be good to go.
Yeah, another thing I found interesting that you were talking about is using the sauna. I think there's so many different benefits of using a sauna that are just completely overlooked.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand the value of heat and what it can do for you. But essentially, it simulates you going into the gym and doing a pretty hard workout, right? We get when our core temperature gets risen specifically to a particular temperature, we get release of heat shock proteins that are tremendously beneficial. We have hormone balance. It's going to increase our testosterone production and lower estrogen production. It's going to help us sleep better at night. It's going to increase our immunity. I mean, there are so many stinking things that it's really going to help you feel as though you are, you're able to rest more. You're able to perform better. You're able to recover better. For me, as an aging athlete, someone that's played sports since they were 8 years old, now being 36, it's like my joints have been through a lot. And so when I heat them, and I do that on a regular basis, my knees and my hips and my shoulders, they feel so much better when I go into the gym day in and day out. So that was one of the things that my wife and I really took the time to invest in our home, was to get an infrared sauna put into our house. It was shortly, just a few months into COVID, honestly, because we couldn't go to the big gym, right? The global gym was shut down. And I was like, man, that was really why I had a membership, was to either swim in the pool or to use a sauna, because I've got plenty of weights at my house, so I could do that there. But that was something that I really missed, and I thought that we could both benefit from it, especially, of course, the topic of immunity around COVID and everything else. And so we invested in it. It's been one of the best investments we've ever made since we were married, other than buying a house itself, I think.
Yeah, I mean, especially you do it at night, which is good. There's a scientist, Andrew Huberman, who I listen to a lot, and one of the key things about getting quality sleep is I've dove right into like dialing in sleep and making sure you can sleep optimal. And one of the things I found is if you take a hot shower or sauna before, like an hour before you go to bed, you typically sleep better, way better.
Yep. Yeah, I noticed that on a regular basis from myself, and I think my wife would agree as well.
Yeah, and then obviously there's other things you can do, like L-theanine is an amazing supplement for sleep, and then you have magnesium threonate that also suppresses your frontal lobe of your brain, and then there's what's the other one? But there's a third one that Andrew Huberman talks about as well, where it's like he just takes those three, and then it's so good. Just the only thing that I really felt like is the difference is you get really intense dreams when you take those kind of supplements. Your body doesn't really gain a dependence on them, like melatonin. Where you're gonna slowly increase the dosage, and melatonin will get you to sleep, but it won't keep you asleep. And there's also studies that are coming out that melatonin is also throwing off like kids. A lot of parents give their kids melatonin to get them to sleep, but it's thrown, especially in young boys, it's thrown off their hormonal imbalance. So they're not completely hitting puberty as they age into, my age, which I'm 17, 18. They're not completely getting into that hormonal development.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, you gotta tread lightly with the supplements you use and what you do and how you invest in your body. And everyone has to be aware of what to use and how to use it. There's no question about that. That's why I'm always encouraging people to do the research and know the differences in what to take and how often to take it and how much to take. Yeah, because I think that's a really, really important topic.
Yeah. and another thing, there's a lot of fitness professionals going to this, and so proper cooling during a workout. Have you heard of anything of this? Are you familiar?
Proper cooling?
Yeah, like cooling in between sets.
Nope.
So what they've been doing is you only vent heat through certain amount through three places, because your hair has, or your body has, hair follicles everywhere besides these three places: your palms, the bottom of your feet, and your forehead. And so what they figured out is when you hit failure, that's your muscle heating up and not being able to produce pyruvate kinase, which is basically what turns ATP into energy, right? And so when your muscle heats up, that's what failure is your muscles heating up and it can't get energy. So what they've found is that if you hold, like they do this with the San Francisco 49ers, and they're starting to do this in the UFC, is they hold a cool PVC pipe, which is cool water, and they're seeing the 49ers, Fred Warner, he's doing significantly more dips and bench presses at a stable weight than if he was without the cooling agent. So I would suggest maybe looking into that. I can send you a few links, but yeah, I've found that and I've tested it, and it's like, wow, I'm doing significantly more reps.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'll look into that. I haven't heard much about it at all. Not anything. So I'll look into that for sure.
Yeah, especially being, a CrossFit professional, I think that might help a little bit, because
Cool.
they're also increasing their PR like 2 to 5% each week of lifting and working out.
Yeah, that's 2 to 5% each week is unheard of. So it must be good.
Yeah, so I can send you some links about that as well. But and I'm actually intrigued of CrossFit. I'm not really familiar with it. Like, and I know in 8th grade there was the CrossFit Club. I wasn't really intrigued by it, but as like I'm diving into the fitness game and stuff, and being a college athlete and an amateur athlete, I also think that it might be very beneficial, because you're working to explode. Like football, you can deadlift, but you're not really picking anything off the ground in a real life football game. You know what I'm saying? So like, explosive lifts like a power clean or a clean and jerk, I think is what we're starting to go to as far as like football and, explosive athletic sports. So I just wanted to ask you, like, can you break down CrossFit, what the games look like and competition and everything like that as well?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, CrossFit, to be very specific, is constantly varied functional movements executed at a high intensity. So that's literally how we describe it and what it's defined as, meaning that we constantly vary the things that we do. That's going to protect you from movement redundancy, right? A lot of people go into the gym and do the same thing over and over and over again. And what that breeds is specialty, right? Like you want to be special at a particular thing. Well, CrossFit isn't for the specialist. CrossFit is for the generalist, which is what 99.9% of people on human earth should be: generalists, not specialists, right? Because they're not special enough to actually be a profession in deadlifting or bodybuilding or
Right.
back squatting or bench pressing. So with that being said, it's for the masses, certainly. The one thing that you're going to struggle to find when you start CrossFit is that, like, if you really want to focus on bench press, well, you got to add in some linear progressions for your bench press. Because if you're really doing CrossFit at its purest form from a conditioning standpoint or day-to-day training, you won't see bench press come up all that often in order to just keep driving it up. Now, it can improve without you doing bench press, believe it or not, right? Because we still do a ton of pressing. We do dips, we do handstand walking, we do handstand push-ups, we do burpees, we do push-ups, we do split jerks, we do push jerks, we do strict press, we do it all. And so pressing comes up quite a bit, but it's not just always horizontal bench pressing or incline bench pressing. With that being said, constantly varied functional movements. The way that we define functional movements is that we're making a large load travel a long distance and quickly, which is where you get to bring up the clean and jerk and the snatch, right? The power clean, the squat clean, the hang clean, the hang snatch, the squat snatch, the overhead squat, all these things. We're making a weight travel a very long distance. And we use this as an example of some young man that goes into the weight room and they're like, hey, I really want to grow my biceps, so I'm going to do curls. Awesome. Well, A heavy curl for someone might be 100 pounds. Let's say 135 pounds, right? And if you stand there and you curl a 135-pound barbell, which is very impressive, for 10 reps, you're moving 1,500 pounds, 13,500 pounds, because you're doing 10 reps, right? But you're only making it travel about this much, right? Like this far, okay? So now let's decide, well, instead to train our biceps, we're gonna also train our back. We're gonna do something called a chin up. Now, if you weigh 150 pounds and you can do 20 chin ups, right? And even increase the ability for you to do more pull-ups than that, you're just going to increase the amount of volume and the amount of intensity that you can consume in a session, which is ultimately going to give you better results. You're going to burn more fat, you're going to exercise more muscle, you're going to break down more muscle tissue. So it grows back now differently, but it grows back faster. So when we talk about gains and intensity and chasing intensity, that's why we select the movements we select in CrossFit. So that's why you see stuff that commonly you don't see in a regular global gym, because we want your heart rate up. We want you working hard, but we want you ultimately doing more work faster, because that's what breeds fitness. And then of course, intensity is a part of that. It's making that barbell travel a greater distance. So that's what you'll look at and see when you see CrossFit. Now, to train for CrossFit and to be great at it, there's ways for you to add in linear progressions. For me, I have squat progressions that I follow. I have deadlift progressions that I follow. I have gymnastics progressions that I follow. So it's not all constantly varied. A good coach is going to guide you in a direction. So your bench press is still going up, your back squat's still going up, but also you're getting fitter. And you're able to do things like run 400-meter repeats like a track star, but you're also able to do things like swim 1,000 meters like a pool athlete, walk on your hands like a gymnast. But also still be pushing up your 1 rep max clean and jerk and snatch at the same time. So that takes years of experience and of course a pretty sharp mind and how to do those things without injuring your athletes and keeping them safe. But that's what CrossFit looks like. And then when you get to the CrossFit Games and we're being tested at a very high level, it's the fittest of the fit. You see people who can run. One of my goals was always to run a 5-minute mile and still be able to back squat 500 pounds in the same day. That's real fitness. Right. And it's not that you can go out to the NFL and find guys that can do that, because there's not many that can. Now, a lot of guys can back squat 500 pounds, no problem. But can those same guys run a sub 5-minute mile? Ooh, you're hard pressed to find that combo. And in the same way, we do something called a ring muscle up in our sport. And it's like, cool. You want to be able to see guys that can also do, almost 30 unbroken ring muscle ups before they drop down, but also have the ability to deadlift almost 600 pounds off the floor. And those unique combinations are what make us superhuman. So it makes someone very hard to kill. And essentially that's what makes a very, very, very good generalist, where, and I'm sure you can see this for people that you interview or look out into specialization sports, but it's like guys deadlift 1,000 pounds. Now I'll never deadlift 1,000, but I've deadlifted 630. And, I haven't run a 5-minute mile in a very long time, but I've run a 5:14 mile a couple of years ago. So it's like, I'm not there, but I'm close. And that really leads me to a very high level of capacity where if it hit the fan right now and I had to do something like carry a couple people out of this building, like I'd be ready to do it and probably do it several times if I needed to, versus a specialist that could deadlift 1,000 pounds, which is really cool. And they probably make a lot more money for their sport than I do, but they might not make it out of the building a couple of times, let alone by themselves, if they got to carry someone on their back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's the beauty in CrossFit. That's why I love it for everyone. And not everyone's going to pursue it to the level I have, of course. And most people don't. But I think from a general perspective, it's something that I really hope more people look to, are curious about, learn more about, and then try to start to apply to some degree.
Yeah, I think it's just like anything else. There's going to be the casual CrossFitter, and then there's going to be the diehard CrossFitter where they realize that it's a lifestyle. And that I think with any kind of sport, there's going to be people that like just like being a part of it and doing it, and then there's the people that are like, this is a lifestyle. Being good at being extremely talented at a sport is when you make that decision of saying, okay, I enjoy this, but I'm also going to do what it takes to make it a lifestyle.
Exactly. Yeah, no doubt. And I think if you go to a CrossFit gym and you sign up, you'll certainly make it a lifestyle, right? Because you want to eat well, you want your investment. If you sign up for a CrossFit gym and it's $150 a month, you don't want that investment to go to waste. You don't want to just show up and suffer every week. You want to get better. You want to get healthier. Right. You want to look better in the mirror, all these things. And so with that being said, you're going to go there and also learn things like how to properly dial in your nutrition and what that looks like. from the same kind of conversation we're having. You know, what's it mean to eat meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar? And what's the best way to do it? What's the best way to pack on muscle? What's the best way to lose fat? All those things. And so it does become a lifestyle. And that's why it's so polarizing, right? Like when CrossFit first started way back in the day, it was almost like this cultish type following. It was because people just felt so enamored by it and fell in love with it. And then of course, yeah, there's people who find it and they don't got it, right? Just like every other sport, it's like everyone can say they're training to go to the NFL, but we know most people don't got what it takes to go to the NFL. It's the same thing with the CrossFit Games. Everybody can feel like they're doing training to go to the CrossFit Games, but the truth is most people don't have what it takes genetically to go to the CrossFit Games, and they won't. And the more people, the more talent that finds the sport of CrossFit and falls in love with it, the less chances that the everyday man and woman will have of even dreaming of going that far. But that's okay, because the cool thing about the sport of CrossFit is we all still train the same, just to varying degrees, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. So as far as competition, what's a competition look like in CrossFit?
It's a weekend, often 4 days, 4 to 5 days of a test that is holistically well-rounded, meaning that they want to make sure the test is well-rounded enough that if I come in as a football player, for example, and I am the strongest person there, that I probably shouldn't win the competition, right? Because if it's a well-rounded enough test and there's a couple max effort lifts and I might really do really well and win those events, there should also be some events that also pull out some of my glaring weaknesses, like, you know, running a marathon or rowing a marathon or swimming a 5K for time or something along those lines. So when you go to the CrossFit Games, you see tests like, you know, run a mile, swim 1,000 meters, run a mile for time. And that's a standalone event. But then you also see events that are also like, you know, establish a 1 rep max clean and jerk in 3 attempts. So it's a very much just a strength dominant event. Mm-hmm. Then you have the more traditional things that are really, really, really traditional CrossFit, which might be something along the lines of row 1,000 meters, do 70 chest to bar pull-ups, do 50 handstand push-ups, then do 25 overhead squats at 185 pounds for the men and 125 pounds for the ladies for time, right? So you got a lot of events that are called mixed modal events, which means they kind of piece together gymnastics, aerobic type fitness, either running, rowing, or swimming, and also weightlifting. And that's going to be the crux of most of the events. But then some of the events, like I mentioned, are like, you know, 100-meter sprint. Let's see who's the fastest. And they take that event as one of them as well. So usually what we see over the years past is somewhere between 12 and 15 tests in about 4 days or 3 days. And then they crown the fittest person on earth when it's all said and done.
And that's the CrossFit Games itself?
Yeah, that would be how the CrossFit Games, if you qualify for them, how they're executed, right? So this year it'll be in August. Now, in order to qualify for the CrossFit Games, the competition starts next week, right? So it starts this early in February, February 24th. They will come out with a workout. Everyone in the whole world can participate, but you got to film yourself and you got to be judged by a validated judge if you want to have a chance to go to the CrossFit Games. What they'll do for 3 weeks is release one workout every week. Everybody just does the workout and submits their video and their results. Then they're going to take the top 10% in the world and advance them. And they'll be sent another series of workouts in about another 4 weeks later. And it's going to be over the course of then 3 or 4 days, they'll have to do about 5 or 6 workouts. So this will only go one weekend. They also have to get those judged and submit them video wise. After they do that, which is called quarterfinals, the top 10% then goes down to the top 120 men in America and the top 120 women in America. And they get to go to 3 different potential competitions where there's 40 men and women at each. Does that make sense?
Yes.
This is called semifinals. From that semifinal, the top 5 men and 5 women from each semifinal advance to the CrossFit Games. And the same thing happens in other countries. So we have 3 semifinals here in the United States. There's going to be another 2 in Europe. There's 1 in Asia. There's 1 in Africa. And then there's like 1 in Australia and 1 in Canada. And at each one of the competitions, I think they have different amounts of winners that they can take. So America, we get 5 men and 5 women from each semifinal. And some of the other countries, it's either only the top 3 or the top 2. Because they get less spots at the games. But ultimately what it ends up then from semifinals, the top 40 men and top 40 women in the world get to go to the CrossFit Games and compete for the crown of the fittest on earth.
Wow. And so the workout is, so if you like, let's say you kill it in the strength workouts, but you're very average and, you know, the cardio based workouts, the run, the swim, the rowing. Do you have to like, what would be standard to progress? Like if you kill it and you're like average, would that cut it to go to the, the 10%, and then the 120? Or like, do you have to be upper echelon in everything?
Well, so to make it from the first phase, so in the first 3 weeks to advance and you have to be the top 10% in the world. So I would say that you could be pretty average and still make it out of that from a general, but it got to be top 10%. So that's not average. That's, you know what I mean? You're better than 90% of the world still. But what I would say is that everyone has weaknesses and strengths, but your weaknesses can't be so weak that they kick you out of contention. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So really what I would look at, and it's the same way I treat my athletes, there are people that I work with and coach and train and do programs for, so they do progress. And it's an honest assumption. It would be like me working with you and saying like, hey, I know that you're killing it with the back squat and you're killing it with the deadlift, but we're going to take a break from that over the next couple of months to really prioritize your conditioning. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be like, oh man, that sucks. And I'm going to be like, yeah, no, but you can't have weaknesses if you want to be elite. So it takes a little bit of time. And there's some things that you have to make really hard choices about with where you spend your time training, because there's only so much time in a day and only so much progress you can make in a year or 2 years or whatever, right? So for me, coming as a football player, I was strong enough in the back squat, the deadlift, and the press or the bench press, all those things. But I needed to learn how to snatch because it wasn't great for me. And my overhead squat sucked, and I needed to build long stamina, meaning that I needed to learn how to pace things, and I had to learn how to swim. I was terrible at that at first. And so as I started to train those things, I literally took the better part of 3 to 6 months away from lifting, and I had to dial in my endurance. And then the closer the season got, the more I started to do it all again. And I was much more well-rounded. Mm-hmm. So this is often the approach a lot of people have to make, but that's why you meet a lot of CrossFitters and they're pretty humble because there's always something that they kind of suck at and they have to get better at. And so every day you do that, you're like, man, I got to get better. No matter how great you are at something, there's always something to be working on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the same in any sport. I mean, mixed martial arts, which I'm very familiar with, it's a very humbling sport because, you could be the best, you could be a black belt in jiu-jitsu and know what you're doing, but then there's going to be some kickboxer that'll, whoop you, and then vice versa. You can go to a whole nother Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym and there's a purple belt that will smoke you. And so, it's very humbling to be a part of that community. And, it's like, wow, even the best in the world, there's somebody that's going to beat them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's cool. That's what makes sports worthwhile and also makes them so valuable to our everyday life, man. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It makes you better humans because it helps you walk a little bit more humbly, but also proud of your efforts when you're working on something that you suck at.
Yeah. So overall, would you say CrossFit builds up everything? It's like the most well-rounded workout that you could get.
In my opinion, yeah, no doubt. And the reason is because it leans into intensity, which most people need, right? When we think about even what people do as they age and what they lean away from or shy away from, it's like people stop lifting heavy once they don't consider themselves an athlete anymore. And the truth is we need heavier strength training and more quality lifting the older that we get, because that's the best way to create a barrier between you and decrepitude or you and dependency, right? Like you have grandparents and I have grandparents and people who are still alive and fighting for their independence by the fact that like, if they fall on the ground and they can't get up and they're alone, like they need someone to live with them, right? And the stronger, we know this from research, that the stronger that you are through your prime years, the less strength you lose as you age. So if you continue to train it, wow, the stronger your bones are, the stronger that you are. And of course, it's the same way with intensity. A lot of people want to go out and go for walks, and walking is great. People don't do it enough. But in the same token, it's like, if I know my grandfather can run fast for 30 yards or 400 meters or, 200 meters, I know there's a chance that if he had to, he could save his own life by getting out of his house if there was a fire, right? Or something along those lines. And I know, all these sound like really intense examples, but that's the kind of the way that life starts to shake out as we get older. It's like we're just a margin away from not being able to evade something or falling and breaking a hip and then being down for a surgery. And then once we're down for 6 months, how much strength we lose and all these things. So yes, I do believe that CrossFit is honestly the optimal way to train. I think that you can train similar to it and not call it CrossFit as well. But I do think that Greg Glassman, when he founded it, really taught a lot of people a lot of things on, man, we really should be using these movements and we should be doing them well, right? It's not just about squatting to just above parallel, just to put more weight on your back. It's about No, squat all the way down and do what's really good form, and then build it up and get heavy, and do it quality over quantity so that you can do it for the long term and not just hurt yourself, because you're doing it too hard and too wrong for the first 3 months or something like that. But yeah, I love CrossFit, man. I'll do it until I die for sure. And I think hopefully it'll help keep me young and keep me focused.
I think yeah, maintaining healthy living throughout within diet and working out as you age is super important. I mean, like you said, uh, the people who are maintain a healthier diet and healthier lifestyle throughout their youth and as they age are more likely going to be healthier when they're older. And I think it also helps with health conditions. I mean, just for like going back to COVID-19, there's a lot of like if you take care of your body, you're a lot less likely to struggle with, a disease rather than somebody who isn't, taking care of their body as much. And, those are the ones who are struggling.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, man.
And I think it doesn't matter whatever, it doesn't even have to be COVID. It could be, many other, diseases that, life is going to have diseases. That's, it's always going to be here. And so I think taking care of yourself is the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good reminder. I mean, when we teach these seminars, what we do is we teach something, called a continuum, but it's like a half arch, right? And on this far side of the half arch, we have, sickness, right? And it's kind of the bottom. And in the middle, we have wellness. And then on the far right, we have fitness. And really the goal is to understand and see that if we're right at wellness, which is a lot of people's goal, they're like, I just want to be well, right? I don't want to be sick. So I want to be well. And wellness is really just defined, sadly, as the absence of sickness, which is not a good way to live, in my opinion, right? I don't want to just be absent of sickness to be healthy. I want to be priming. I want to be thriving. So, but if you only make it to wellness, the downside is the buffer between you and sickness isn't that far. Mm-hmm. Right. So you're only one car accident away, or you only, one bad flu or one COVID-19 away from being really sick, really bad, in a bad place. But if you continue to build your capacity towards fitness, towards those elite level of fitness, or the fittest that you could be, right? For example, then you've got that long buffer, you've got that long way to travel where, if, hey, knock on wood, of course, but hey, you get diagnosed with cancer, or you get, some illness that we can't predict or see coming, and you do have a setback. Well, now that you were really fit, you're just going to be well for a while, and then you can build back your fitness. Right. But if you start at wellness and then you get knocked off, you're really, really close to that sickness range, and which brings us closer to death, of course. But yeah, I think that's it, man. Is keeping and teaching that to the masses so they understand the value.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I know you're a busy man, so I got a quality episode in. I want to thank you for joining me. I
Absolutely
hope to have you back on soon. Thank you for the information you've provided me and the viewers. I really appreciate your insight. That being said, thank you, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No problem.